Price stood at the observation window of Earth's orbital command station. Below him, the planet rotated slowly. Light sparkled across the night side like scattered diamonds. 6 months ago, another world had looked just like this. New Haven, humanity's first successful colony beyond the solar system. 40,000 people had lived there. 40,000 men, women, and children building a new life under Aegis. New Haven was a graveyard. Luckton stared back at him from the glass, gray hair at his temples, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there a year ago. He was 53 years old and had served in Earth's defense fleet for 30 years. He had seen combat. He had lost friends, but nothing had prepared him for New Haven. Roll the council transmission is ready, a voice said behind him. Lieutenant Danny stood at attention. The young officer was 26, thin, with haunted eyes. Danny had been on New Haven when the attack. He had been off duty visiting his sister and her family. He watched from orbit as warships burned the colony from space. His sister died in the first wave. Her husband and 2 children died trying to reach the ship. He was one of 800 survivors out of 40,000. Q Lieutenant said, display it on the main screen. Together to the command center. Officers worked at their stations, monitoring Earth's defense grid. Every eye turned to the central screen as it activated. The image showed the Galactic Council Chamber, a massive circular room where representatives from 67 species gathered to discuss matters of peace, trade, and law. As her hand appeared on screen, she was a small woman with sharp eyes and iron in her voice. She stood at the speaker's podium facing the assembled council members. Months ago, said, the Dominion attacked our colony on New Haven. They came without warning. They ignored all attempts at communication. They destroyed our cities from orbit and hunted survivors on the ground. 40,000 human civilians died. We have provided you with all evidence. We have shown you the recordings. We have given you the names of every person who died. The members listened with expressions ranging from boredom to mild sympathy. Councilor Al, the council leader, was a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms. He sat in the highest seat, looking down at with what might have been patience. Acknowledge Earth's loss, Al said. His voice was smooth, almost gentle. The Dominion has been fined for violation of colonization protocols. They have paid reparation to your government. Reparations, Reed, the word came out flat. You find them, the murdered 40,000 people, and you find them. Claimed they were unaware the colony was inhabited, Al said. They believed they were extracting minerals from an uninhabited world. It was an unfortunate misunderstanding. The command center, Danny's hands clenched into fists, put a hand on the young officer's shoulder. Screen's fate remained calm. They received 17 separate communications from our colony. They were told repeatedly that New Haven was home to 40,000 humans. They ignored every message. They jammed our distress signals. They hunted our people through the streets. This was not a misunderstanding. This was murder. Species is young, Al said. You are emotional. This is understandable. But in the galaxy, such incidents occur. Resources are valuable. Mistakes happen. The council has rendered judgment. The matter is closed. Silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried across the chamber like steel scraping stone. Then hear this. Earth hereby issues formal warning to the Galactic Council and all member species. If one more human civilian dies in an attack on our territory, Earth will respond with total war. We will not ask for council permission. We will not wait for fines or reparations. We will act immediately and without mercy. This is not a threat. This is a promise. You have been warned. The chamber erupted in noise. Some people laughed. Others looked shocked. Al raised one hand for silence. As a young species with a single and 3 small colonies, he said. You have limited military capability and no allies in council. We understand you are agreeing, but threats are unwise. The council suggests you accept our judgment and move forward. At him, we have given you our warning. What you do with it is your choice. Transmission ended. The screen went dark. Around the command center, every officer watched him waiting. He activated his command console. Fleet commanders, this is Admiral Price. Initiate protocol endgame. Authorization code Price 77 Delta. Mark time is 1400 hours Earth standard. All personnel to battle stations within 6 hours. This is not a drill. Command center exploded into activity. Officers rushed to their stations. Communications officers began sending encrypted messages to fleet commanders across human space. Danny remained standing beside, his fate pale. Admiral Danny said quietly, protocol endgame, that's the contingency plan for total war. Yes, said. You think they'll attack again? A star chart on his screen. It showed human territory, Earth, 3 colonies, a dozen mining outposts, and patrol routes covering roughly 20 light years. Then he expanded the view. Territory was massive, covering hundreds of systems. They had been a spacefaring civilization for 3,000 years. They commanded fleets that could darken sun. What they want, said. Rare earth elements worth billions. The council gave them a fine that amounts to pocket change. They learned that killing humans has no real consequences. So yes, Lieutenant, I believe they will attack again. And when they do, we need to be ready. Hayes entered the command center. She was chief diplomatic advisor, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a sharp mind. She had argued for 6 months that diplomacy could work, that the council would listen to reason, that justice would prevail. Activated protocol endgame, said. It wasn't a question. I did. You understand what that means. Total war against a civilization that outguns us 100 to 1. You understand? Should try negotiation, give the council time to. And to face her. I watch the transmission, you watch it. The council doesn't care, they don't care. 40,000 people are dead and the galaxy considers it a minor incident. If we don't draw a line now, if we don't show them we're serious, the attacks will continue. If we're wrong, if they don't attack again. We stand down and all we've lost is time and resource preparing for a war that didn't come. But if we're right and we're not prepared, gestured to Danny. Ask the lieutenant what happens when we're not ready. To Danny, the young officer's jaw was tight, his eyes distant. Sister begged them to stop, Danny said quietly. She stood in the street with her children and begged. They burned her to ash. Protocol endgame isn't about revenge, Dr. Hayes. It's about making sure no one else has to watch their family die while the galaxy looks away. Closed her eyes. When does the fleet deploy? In 24 hours, said. Every ship we have takes position at our colony worlds and outposts. If they come, we'll be ready. As human space, the message spread. Military personnel reported to their ships. Civilian colonists prepared evacuation plans. On Earth, factories that built mining equipment switched to building weapons. Shipyards that constructed cargo vessels began assembling war. The Dominion High Commander reviewed reports from New Haven. The minerals extracted from the planet were valuable beyond measure. His superiors were pleased. The council's fine was negligible. The humans had made noise, but noise meant nothing. Up a star chart, another human colony caught his attention. Salon Ridge. Intelligence reports showed significant mineral deposits there. 8,000 humans, minimal defenses, easy target. Began planning the attack. His command station watched stars through the observation window. Somewhere out there in the vast darkness between worlds, someone was making a choice. To test humanity's warning or to accept it. To gamble that humans were weak or to believe they were serious. Colonel Lee Grant walked through the quarters of Epsilon Ridge Colony with a coffee cup in one hand and reports in the other. It was early morning colony time. The artificial lights were set to simulate. The transparent dome overhead, she could see the planet's pink sky and twin moons. Was 42 years old. She had been colony defense commander for 3 years. Before New Haven, her job had been mostly boring. She ran drills. She checked equipment. She filed reports. The biggest excitement was usually a malfunction in the sensor grid or a transport ship arriving late. For New Haven, everything changed. Garrison had tripled in size. New weapon platforms orbited the colony. Evacuation plans were rehearsed weekly. Every civilian knew where their nearest shelter was and could reach it in under 2 minutes. Leah didn't sleep well anymore. She spent nights staring at sensor displays, watching for ships that might appear without one. Entered the command center. Lieutenant Carl sat at the main console. He was a young man from Texas with steady hands and a calm voice. Good qualities in a crisis. And Colonel Carl said, "Quiet night, no ship contacts. Life freighter from Earth is on schedule, arrives in 6 hours." Lisa set down her coffee and checked the displays herself. Salon Ridge was smaller than New Haven had been. 8,000 people, mostly miners and their families. They extracted rare minerals from deep underground. The work was hard but paid well. Families came here to build better lives. Just like New Haven. "I'll run a full diagnostic on the defense grid," Lisa said. "I want every system checked. Weapons, sensors, communications, everything." "Yes, ma'am, 3rd time this week, though." "No, do it anyway." Nod and began the diagnostic. Leah knew she was being paranoid. Earth's defense fleet had assured her they were monitoring this. Admiral Price himself had sent a message saying that if anything approached Epsilon Ridge, the fleet would respond within hours. But hours might not be enough. New Haven's defenders had hours too. It hadn't. In the colony's main residential section, Min Jun Park was making breakfast for his daughter. Min Jun was an engineer from Seoul who had moved to Epsilon Ridge 2 years ago. His wife had died of cancer 3 years back. He and his daughter came to the colony for a fresh start. Was 8 years old now. She went to the colony school. She had friends. She was happy. "Can we go to the observation deck after school?" asked. She spoke English with a slight accent, mixing in Korean words when excited. "Teacher said we can see the mining shuttles launch today." "I'm done with work, yes," Min Jun said. He handed her a plate with eggs and toast. "Eat quickly or you'll be late." Fast talking between bites about school and her friends and the new kid who had arrived last week from Earth. Min Jun listened and smiled. This was what mattered. His daughter's laughter, her excitement about simple things, the life they were building together. The deep black space beyond Epsilon Ridge, 6 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship. He was a tall creature with dark scales and eyes that reflected light like mirrors. He had led the attack on New Haven. It had been efficient, profitable, and the consequences had been minimal. Fine that his government barely noticed. Some angry words from the humans. "Confirmed," his tactical officer said. "Human colony Epsilon Ridge, population approximately 8,000, defensive capability minimal, 2 orbital platforms, light weapons only." Flint said, "Jam their communications. I want no distress signals reading Earth until we're finished." "Yes, Commander." Epsilon Ridge, Carl's board lit up like a fireworks display. Red warnings covered his screen. His coffee cup fell to the floor and shattered. "Oh, we have incoming. 6 large contacts, signators. They just jammed our long-range communication." His blood turned to ice. "Battle stations, now sound colony-wide alert. Get everyone to the shelter." His wailed through Epsilon Ridge. People dropped what they were doing and ran. Parents grabbed children. Workers abandoned their stations. Everyone knew the drill. They had practiced this 20 times since New Haven. They moved fast and they moved together. Jun heard the sirens in his apartment. He grabbed his hand. "Come on, shelter right now." "Ed, what's happening?" "It's time, run." And into the quarter, other families poured out of apartments. The crowd moved toward the central shelter, a reinforced bunker built deep underground. Min Jun kept close, pulling through the crowd. His heart hammered in his chest. The command center, Leah watched her displays. The ships were massive. Her 2 orbital platforms wouldn't slow them down. She had made 5 minutes before they opened fire. "The message out," Lisa ordered. "Anyway possible, type beam to Earth, quantum relay, anything." "Jamming everything," Colonel Carl said. His voice was tight with fear but steady. "I can't break through." Activated the colony-wide spheres. "This is Colonel Grant. All civilians proceed to shelters immediately. Defense personnel to your stations. We are under attack. I repeat, we are under attack. Earth has been." That last part was a lie, but people needed hope. Flagship watched the colony's pathetic defense activate. 2 weapon platforms that couldn't penetrate his shields. No fleet support in range. The humans had learned nothing from New Haven. "Destroy the defense platforms," he ordered. "Then commence bombardment of the surface. Target the mining facilities first. I want those minerals intact if possible." "And the population, Commander?" "Irrelevant." So in fire, energy beams cut through space. The first orbital platform exploded in sands. The second tried to fight back. Its weapon splashed harmlessly against shields. It lasted 12 seconds longer than its command. Jun reached the shelter entrance. Hundreds of people crowded inside. Emergency lights cast everything in harsh white, held his hand tight. Her eyes were wide with fear. "Ed, are we safe here?" Jun wanted to say yes. He wanted to promise her that everything would be okay. But he had seen the reports from New Haven. He knew what ships could do. This shelter might protect them from light weapons. But if they used heavy bombardment, if they really wanted everyone dead, this shelter was just a tomb with a delayed burial. "We're together," he said instead. "That's what matters." First impacts hit the surface. The ground shook, dust fell from the ceiling, children cried, adults held them close, the lights flickered but stayed on. The command center, Lee knew she was about to die. Her station would be one of the first targets, but she stayed at her post. Carl stayed beside her. If they were going to die, they would die doing their jobs. "I'll keep trying to get a message out, even just our location and ship signatures, something that will reach Earth." "Yes, ma'am." Bombardment intensified. Buildings explode. The mining facilities burned. Leah watched her displays as the colony she had protected for 3 years died around her. 47 seconds later, an energy beam punched through the command center. Lisa and Carl and everyone else in the room ceased to exist. Lasted 18 minutes. When it ended, Epsilon Ridge was ruins. The landed ground troops to secure the mining facilities. They moved through the wreck efficiently. When they found the shelters, they sealed them. 8,000 humans trapped underground in reinforced tombs. They didn't waste ammunition killing them. They just left them to suffocate when the air ran out. Jun held in the dark. The emergency lights had failed. The air was getting stale. Around them, people cried or prayed or sat in silence. He knew they were going to die. He knew Earth might never find out what happened here. They jammed communications too well. Jun was an engineer. He understood systems. And he realized they had made one mistake. They jammed active communications. They didn't think about path systems. The colony's quantum relay was designed to automatically record and transmit everything. It was a backup system, low power often forgot. It stored data and transmitted it in compressed bursts when the main systems were down. "Stay here," Minden said. "Stay with Mrs. I have to check something." "Don't leave me." "I'll be right back, I promise." Pushed through the crowd to the shelter's emergency system panel. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a quantum relay terminal. The screen was dark, but the system had power. He activated it. The screen glowed faintly. Relay showed 42 minutes of recorded data from the attack. Video, audio, sensor readings, everything. And it was set to transmit to Earth in compressed quantum bursts. The jamming couldn't stop quantum transmission. It was too fast, too scattered. The data would reach Earth. Jun's hands moved across the keyboard. He added his own message, text only, simple words. Min Jun Park, Epsilon Ridge Colony. TAC. 8,000 civilians sheltered underground. Colonel Grant and defense personnel killed. Sealed our shelter, air running out. We have made 6 hours. Tell our families we love them. Tell Earth this was not an accident. They knew we were here. They killed us anyway. Make them pay. Please make them. Sent the transmission, then he went back to and held her close. Relay burst reached Earth 4 hours later. It arrived at every major military installation and government facility simultaneously. Admiral Price was in a briefing when his aide ran into the room. Admiral, priority alert, Epsilon Ridge, they're under attack. Blood ran cold, when? 4 hours ago, we just received the quantum relay data, sir, it's bad. To the command center. The data was already playing on screens. He watched the attack, watched the colony die, watched the hunt down survivors and seal them in their shelters. He read Min Jun Park's message. Call endgame was activated. He had hoped he was wrong, hoped they would back down, hoped the galaxy would see sense. He was dead now, buried in the ruins of Epsilon Ridge, the galactic council chamber filled with representatives from 67 species. They gathered in response to Earth's emergency transmission. Counselor Al sat in his high seat, all four arms crossed. He looked annoyed. Emergency settings interrupted the council's carefully planned. Her hand stood at the speaker's podium. Behind her, screen displayed images from Epsilon Ridge. Burned buildings, sealed shelters, bodies, 8,000 humans dead or dying. The council members looked at the image with varying degrees of interest. Some seemed concerned. Most seemed bored. They had seen tragedy before. The galaxy was a heartbreak. Ral said. Her voice was quiet, too quiet. The chamber fell silent to hear her. 6 months ago, I stood in this chamber and warned you. I told you that one more attack on human territory would result in total war. You dismissed that warning. You called us emotional. You said we were young and didn't understand how the galaxy was. Said her hand, Al said. We sympathize with your loss, but military action without council approval is. You don't care about council approval anymore. We erupted in noise. Species shouted at each other. Some demanded Earth be sanctioned. Others called for calm. Al raised a hand for silence. It took several minutes for order to return. So your species cannot simply ignore the council's authority, Al said. There are rules, Perseers. If you take military action without our approval, there will be consequences. When you read? We told you exactly what would happen. You chose not to listen. The Dominion murdered 40,000 humans on New Haven. You find them. They learned that killing humans has no real consequences, so they killed 8,000 more on Epsilon Ridge. Tell me, Counselor, what fine will you give them this time? What meaningless punishment will make this right? Representative stood. He was a tall creature covered in dark scales. The attack on Epsilon Ridge was a legitimate resource extraction operation. The colony was in disputed territory. We had every right. No right, said, her voice cut like a knife. You received 43 communications from our colony. You jammed their distress signals. You sealed civilians in their shelters and left them to suffocate. You knew exactly what you were doing. This was murder. Planned, deliberate murder. On words from a species with no military power, they said, your entire fleet couldn't defeat a single battle group. You make threats you cannot back up. It was not a pleasant smile. Captain Sophie, please display current fleet positions. Image appeared on the screens. It showed a star map. Red dots marked military installations. Blue dots marked human ships. There were hundreds of blue dots. They surrounded every major facility. The council chamber went silent. 2 hours ago, said, Earth's defense fleet has taken position at every military base, shipyard, and command station in your territory. We did this without you noticing. Our ships moved through your space like ghosts. You had no idea we were there until we wanted you to know. Representative's face paled. Impossible, our senators would have detected nothing because we didn't want them to. While you laughed at us, while you called us primitive, we were developing technology you didn't know existed. Stealth systems that make our ships invisible to your scanners. Quantum weapons that can tear through your shields like paper. We let you think we were weak. We let you underestimate us. That was our mistake. We should have shown you our strength from the beginning. Loral stood. All four arms gestured urgently. Ambassador, if Earth attacks facilities, the Council will have no choice but to intervene. Other species will join the conflict. This could escalate into Galactic War. Escalate said, we gave you peace, we gave you diplomacy, we gave you warnings. You gave us empty words and useless fines while our people died. So now we give you war. The Dominion has 24 hours to surrender their entire military leadership for trial on Earth. If they refuse, we will dismantle their civilization piece by piece. And if anyone tries to stop us, we will dismantle them too. His madness, Al said, well, this is justice. We warned you. Now you'll see what happens when humanity's warnings are ignored. And then walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the Council erupted in chaos. The galaxy, Captain Sophie sat in the command chair of the stealth ship Silent Arrow. Around her, 23 other stealth ships held position just outside a massive shipyard. The yard was building 6 new warships. Thousands of workers moved through the facility. She was 34 years old. She had grown up in California and joined the defense fleet at 18. She had spent her entire career in intelligence and reconnaissance. She was very good at being invisible. Her ships were better. We have confirmation, her communications officer said. All fleet groups report ready. We have every major military facility covered. On your order, we strike. Checked her displays. The shipyard's shields were powerful. Its weapons were designed to fight off entire fleets. But those defenses were aimed outward. They expected attacks to come from a distance, from visible ships charging in with weapons blazing. They didn't expect 24 invisible ships already positioned inside their defense perimeter. Ships, this is Sophie, target locked, await my command. Thought about New Haven, about Epsilon Ridge, about 48,000 dead humans. Children burned alive, families suffocated in shelters, all because they thought human lives didn't matter. Fire? 4 ships opened fire simultaneously. Their quantum weapon punched through the shipyard shields like they weren't there. The facility's main reactor exploded. Secondary explosions rippled through the structure. The 6 warships under construction tore apart. In 45 seconds, the shipyard was debris. Felt no satisfaction. This wasn't revenge. This was a message. The galaxy needed to understand that humanity's warnings carry weight. Jake sat in a dark room filled with computers. He was an intelligence officer, 30 years old, brilliant with code and patterns. For 6 months, he had been breaking communications. Their encryption was good. His was better. Well, Price, you need to see this, Jake said into his communicator. Face appeared on his screen. What do you have? With military communications from 3 weeks ago. Sir, Epsilon Ridge wasn't an isolated target. They were planning attacks on 3 more colonies. Plymouth Station, New Dublin, and Riverside. They were going to hit all 3 simultaneously next month. Face went hard. They were planning to kill how many? And population of the 3 colonies is 43,000. Sir, they were going to wipe out every human colony outside Earth's solar system. And that day to every ship commander, and send it to the council. I want everyone to see exactly what we're dealing with. Yes, sir. Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship. Alarms screamed. Slays showed disaster after disaster. 3 shipyards destroyed. 5 military bases hit. 2 command stations gone, and the human ships that attacked them had vanished as quickly as they appeared. Was it possible? Demanded. Where are these human ships coming from? Known, Commander, his tactical officer said. The officer's voice shook. Our sensors show nothing. They appear, strike, and disappear. We cannot track them. Blind jumped to random coordinates. Get us away from any human colonies. Full retreat. Retreat was impossible. Human ships had surrounded his fleet. They hadn't fired yet. They were just watching, waiting, realized with cold horror that the humans could destroy his entire fleet whenever they wanted. They were choosing not to, for now. Communication came through. Admiral Price's face appeared on screen. Commander said, his voice was ice. You led the attack on New Haven. You murdered 40,000 civilians. You gave the orders that killed my friends, destroyed families, and burned children alive. I want you to know their names. I want you to understand who you killed. Screen filled with names, 40,000 of them. They scrolled past slowly. Men, women, children, age ranging from newborn bobbies to 90-year-old grandparents. Each name had a face, family, a life that ended straying. People had no weapons, continued. They weren't soldiers, they were farmers, teachers, engineers, children. They begged you to stop. You killed them anyway. Then you went to Epsilon Ridge and did it again. 8,000 more names to add to your tally. Do you feel pride, Commander? Do you feel satisfied? Said nothing. Kill you right now, said. My ships surround yours, one word and you cease to exist. But killing you quickly would be mercy. So instead, you're going to send a message to your government. Tell them they have 24 hours to surrender their military leadership for trial on Earth. Tell them we have decoded their communications. We know they plan to attack 3 more colonies. We know they intended to exterminate every human outside our source. Them if they refuse to surrender, we will dismantle their entire civilization. And tell them humanity keeps its promises. We warned them. They didn't listen. Now they pay the price. Mission ended, stood in silence. Around him, his crew waited for orders. He had commanded fleets for 30 years. He had conquered worlds. He had been feared across multiple sectors. Now a species he had dismissed as primitive had outmaneuvered him completely. They had weapons he didn't understand, ships he couldn't see, and most terrifying of all, they had the will to use them. Council chamber representatives watched the same recordings Jake had found. The decoded messages, plans to attack 3 more colonies, calculations of how many humans would die, discussions of whether to leave any survivors or kill them all. Priest Zora of the Peel stood. She was an old creature covered in soft blue fur with eyes that had seen centuries pass. Her people were known for wisdom and peace. They rarely spoke in council sessions. When they did, others listened. You, Or said quietly. 6 months ago after New Haven, I told you privately that you had made a mistake. I told you that dismissing humanity's grief as emotion was foolish. I told you that humans were different from other young species. You didn't listen to me. You didn't listen to a master hand. You chose to believe that a species without a long spacefaring history must be primitive. Now you see the cost of that. Priestess Sal said, surely you cannot support what Earth is doing. They are attacking without council authorization. They ignore our authority. This cannot be allowed. Cannot be allowed, Or said, is the slaughter of innocents while the council does nothing. 48,000 humans are dead. The plan to kill 43,000 more. Where was council intervention then? Where was council justice? Or fell silent, Or continued. Humanity gave you every opportunity for peace. They brought evidence. They filed complaints. They followed your procedures, and you gave them fines, meaningless fines, while the murderers walked free and planned more acts. You thought that killing humans has no consequences. Now humanity teaches a different lesson, and you call them aggressors. General Cross stood on the bridge of the assault carrier Relentless. Through he watched military installation. 48 years old, career soldier with scars on his body and steel in his spine. He commanded Earth's ground forces. His job was to take and hold territory that the fleet secured. All ground teams report ready, his aide said. 15,000 troops prepared for deployment. Deployed to designated landing zones. Rules of engagement remain in effect. Military targets only. Civilians are not to be harmed. Anyone who violates those rules answers to me personally. Deployed in dropships. They hit military facilities across 6 worlds. The facilities had no warning. Human stealth ships had disabled their centers hours ago. The defenders fought hard, but they were unprepared. Within 8 hours, troops controlled every major military base in the Rem moved through a liberated facility with a security team. Emma was 36 years old, brilliant and driven. She wasn't here to study alien biology. She was here to document war crimes. Here, one of the security officers called, Doctor, you need to see this. Followed him into a sublevel. What she found made her stomach turn. Prison cells, dozens of them. Inside were aliens from species she recognized. Species that were supposedly equal members of the Galactic Council. They were thin, sick, marked with injuries. Some were dead. Medical teams down here now, Em said. And start recording everything. I want full documentation. Knelt beside a female. The creature was barely conscious. Can you hear me? I'm Dr. M from Earth. You're safe now. Can you tell me what happened? Eyes owned. Slaves, she whispered. They took us, used us, worked us until we died. Felt raid building in her chest. How many? Since across many facilities, hidden from council. They said no one cared about lost individuals from minor species. Recorded everything, every testimony, every cell, every body. They hadn't just murdered humans. They had been enslaving and killing aliens for years. The Galactic Council either didn't know or didn't care. Other hand received Emma's reports in her office on the council station. She read them twice to make sure she understood. Then she called an emergency council session. Representatives gathered reluctantly. They had been in constant session for 3 days as Earth systematically dismantled military power. The council had demanded Earth stop. Earth ignored them. 3 council species had tried to send fleets to intervene. Human quantum weapons destroyed those fleets before they got close to space. The council was learning that their authority meant nothing to a species that had been pushed too far. Lurs said, I have new evidence to present, recordings and testimony from facilities we have liberated. Screens lit up with M's documentation, prison cells, testimony from survivors, records showing thousands of aliens enslaved by the over decades. The council chamber went silent. Representatives from species whose people appeared in those cells stood up in shock. This cannot be real, one representative said. They are a civilized species, they would not. It interrupted. And they hid it. And either your intelligence service missed it or someone knew and said nothing. We have found facilities on 12 worlds so far. We estimate at least 15,000 non-humans were enslaved. About 4,000 are still alive. The rest died from overwork, abuse, or were killed when they became too weak to be useful. Loral's face had gone pale. All 4 of his arms trembled. If this is true, if they have been committing these crimes, the council will of course take appropriate action. Appropriate action means nothing, said. Her voice was sharp enough to cut steel. We have learned what council justice looks like. Fines, sanctions, strongly worded condemnations. Meanwhile, people die, so Earth will handle it ourselves. Every facility we capture will be searched. Every prisoner will be freed. Every crime will be documented. And when this is over, the entire galaxy will see what the Dominion really was while the council looked. Commander sat in a detention cell on an Earthship. He had surrendered rather than be destroyed. His fleet had followed suit. Across space, military commanders made the same choice. Fight and die or surrender and face trial. Roll Price entered the cell, stood. The 2 commanders looked at each other across a small metal table. You do understand something, said. Right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and my troops. There are 800 survivors from New Haven serving in our fleet. If I opened this door and let them in, you wouldn't live 5 minutes. They want you dead. They want you to suffer. They want revenge for their family. And why don't you let them? Asked. So we're better than you, because killing you in revenge would make us what you are. We're going to try you legally. We're going to present evidence. We're going to let the galaxy see exactly what you did. And then we're going to let justice, real justice, decide your fate. Galactic Council will never allow you to hold these trials. I'll coldly. The Galactic Council has no say in what we do anymore. We tried their justice. It failed, so we'll use ours. Turned to leave, spoke behind him. You have won. Your military power is greater than we expected. But you are making enemies. Other species fear you now. They will unite against you eventually. Them try, said without turning around. We warned everyone. We gave them every chance for peace. They chose the path. If other species want to test us, they'll learn the same lesson you did. Humanity keeps its promises. On displays, it was a beautiful planet, blue and green with white clouds. 20 billion lived there. Cities covered the continents. Orbital station dotted the space above. Well, we have the surrounded, his tactical officer reported. All major cities are in range. Military installations have been neutralized. Planetary defenses are offline. We can commence bombardment on your order. At the plant, he thought about New Haven, about Epsilon Ridge. About 48,000 dead humans who had begged for mercy and received none. It would be easy to give the order. To do to what they did to humanity's colonies. Turn their cities to ash, make them feel the same fear and... Katif said, we hold position, no bombardment. Sir, we're not here to murder civilians, we're here to end a threat. The military has surrendered. Their leadership is in custody. Killing their civilians serves no purpose except revenge. And we're better than that. Admission came from the planet's surface. The civilian government appeared on screen. They looked terrified. Across, the lead representative said, we surrender unconditionally, please don't destroy our world. Said, but you will comply with the following terms. Your military leadership will be transferred to Earth for trial. All records of military operations for the past 10 years will be provided to our investigators. Any war criminals in hiding will be turned over immediately. Facilities holding slaves or prisoners will be opened and all captives released. Earth forces will occupy your military bases until we're satisfied that your capability for a grant has been... You accept these terms? Yes, anything, please. Your world is safe. We didn't come here to conquer you. We came here to make sure you never attack us again. Em worked day and night documenting the crimes she found. With each facility liberated, the list grew longer. It had been more brutal than anyone realized. Enslaving civilians, conducting experiments, murdering prisoners for sport. Em recorded it all, every testimony, every body, every piece of evidence. Are you doing this? One of her assistants asked. We've already won. Why do we need all this documentation? Evidence matters, Em said. Because if we don't document these crimes in 50 years, someone will claim we exaggerate. They'll say they weren't that bad. They'll say we overreact. So we document everything. We preserve the truth. We make sure future generations understand why this war was necessary. The trials began. The proceedings were broadcast across the galaxy. Every species could watch. The evidence was presented methodically. Recordings from New Haven. Testimony from Epsilon Ridge survivors. Documentation of planned attacks on 3 more colonies. Evidence of enslavement and murder of thousands of aliens from dozens of species. Commander sat in the defendant's chair. He looked smaller now, defeated. The prosecutor was a human woman named Kate Murphy. She was 50 years old, had practiced law for 30 years, and had lost a nephew on New Haven. Enter, Kate said. You received 43 communications from Epsilon Ridge Colony. Communications clearly identifying the colony as inhabited and requesting peaceful contact. Do you deny this? I do not deny it. Gave orders to jam their distress signals. You ordered bombardment of civilian areas. You ordered your troops to seal survivors in their shelters and leave them to die. Do you deny this? I do not. Oh, why did you do it? Silent for a moment. Then he said, because I could. Because the council would find us and nothing more. Because human lives seemed to matter less than mineral rights. Because your species was young and weak and we believed you could do nothing to stop us. And now, I see I was wrong about everything. It lasted 3 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. The verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. Genocide, war crimes, crimes against sentient beings, was sentenced to life in prison. Other commanders received similar sentences. The government was forced to pay reparations not just to Earth, but to every species whose people they had enslaved. Sutterhand stood before the Galactic Council one final time. The chamber was different now. Representatives sat quietly. The arrogance was gone. Fear had replaced it. They had watched Earth dismantle the military in weeks. They had seen human weapons they couldn't defend against. They understood now that humanity's warning had been real. It was said, Earth has completed military operations against the Dominion. Their military leadership is in custody. Their capability for aggression has been eliminated. We have freed thousands of slaves from dozens of species. We have documented crimes that the Council either missed or ignored. Our forces are withdrawing from space. Sir Al said quietly. The Council offers its apology. We failed to act when action was needed. We failed to protect innocents. We failed to take your warning seriously. This was our mistake. Said, it was, and because of your mistake, 48,000 humans are dead. Thousands of aliens were enslaved and murdered. A plan to exterminate every human colony. All of this could have been prevented if you had acted when we first came to you. What does Earth want from the Council now? A document on the chamber screens. Earth proposed new laws. Any species that attacks civilian populations face immediate military intervention. Any species found enslaving sentient beings face sanctions and penal military action. The Council will establish a rapid response force capable of protecting vulnerable colonies. And Earth will have authority to act independently if the Council fails to respond to threats against human colonies or civilians of any. Want the right to act as Galactic Police? One representative asked. We want the Council to do its job to protect innocents, to enforce actual justice instead of meaningless fines, but if the Council fails again, yes, we will act. Because we've learned we can't trust the Council to protect our people, so we'll protect them ourselves. Admiral Price stood in the Memorial Garden on New Haven. The colony had been rebuilt over the past year. New buildings rose where old ones had burned. Families lived here again. Children played in. I've had returned to this world. The memorial remained, 40,000 names carved in black stone. Each name had a small light beside it that glowed softly in the evening, walked slowly along the wall reading names. He knew some of them. Friends he had served with, civilians he had met on inspection tour. Danny's sister and her. A voice spoke behind him. Danny stood there in his uniform. The young lieutenant had been promoted to captain now. He commanded his own ship, a frigate named Guardian. His eyes still carried the weight of what he had witnessed, but there was strength there too. Purpose. Then said, I didn't expect to see you here. Every few months, Danny said, to remember to make sure I never forget why we fight. He stepped up beside and looked at the wall. My sister's name is over there, Rachel, her husband Greg. Their kids, Amy and Jacob, aged 6 and 4. Stood in silence for a moment. Other people moved through the garden. Families of the dead, survivors, tourists who came to understand what had happened here. You think it was worth it? Danny asked quietly. The war, I mean all the fighting, the lives we took. About that? We gave the every chance to stop, every opportunity for peace. They chose to keep killing us, so yes, I think stopping them was worth it, not revenge, just... The galaxy fears us now. Fear means they'll think twice before attacking human colonies. Fear means other species might actually listen when we give warnings. He nodded slowly. I heard you're stepping down as fleet commander. Next month, confirmed. 30 years is enough. Time for younger officers to lead officers like you. What will you do? Remember, make sure people don't forget what happened here and on Epsilon Ridge. History has a way of softening edges. In 50 years, someone will claim they weren't that bad, that we overreact, that the war was unnecessary. I want to make sure the truth survived. Walked together to Rail's section of the wall. Dan reached out and touched his sister's name. She would have liked what you did, building something better, making the galaxy safer. She always believed in protecting us. Raised a good brother, said. Dr. Hayes worked in her office reviewing reports. As chief diplomatic advisor, she now helped implement the new galactic laws Earth had pushed through the council. It was slow work. Some species resisted change, others embraced it, but progress was happening. Assistant knocked and entered. Dr. Hayes, we have a request from the government. They're having trouble with a neighboring species making territorial threats. They're asking if Earth would mediate. Jewel meeting said, let's see if we can solve that peacefully. Also asked if we would present a ship in their space, just as a deterrent. I'll slightly. That's what we're calling it now, deterrent. A year ago, we were the young species no one took seriously. Now they ask us for protection. Is that a bad thing? But it's a responsibility. Every time we position ships, every time we intervene, we're setting precedents. We need to be careful. Power without wisdom is dangerous. Sutterhan sat in her office on the council station. She had been offered the position of permanent council representative, but she had declined. She wanted to return to Earth, to her family, to a life less consumed by politics and death. Communication came through. Counselor Al appeared on her screen. The tall alien looked older now. The war had aged him. Sutterhan, Al said, I wanted to speak with you before you leave the council station. Counselor, I wanted to say again that I am sorry. Sorry for dismissing your warnings. Sorry for not acting when action was needed. Sorry for all the deaths that could have been prevented if I had listened. Tim, do you know what bothers me most? It's not that you failed to act, it's that you didn't care. 40,000 humans died on New Haven and you saw it as a minor incident. A footnote. The lives of a young species that didn't matter to the larger galaxy. Right, Al said quietly. I did see it that way, I was wrong. I have spent the past year trying to understand how I became so callous. How I let bureaucracy and politics blind me to suffering. I have no excuse. I can only try to do better. Galaxy will be watching to see if you do. No, and Ambassador, I hope you know that Earth has changed more than just laws. You've changed how species think about justice and protection. That's a legacy that will outlast all of us. Salon Ridge, the colony had been completely rebuilt. 8,000 people had died here. The sealed shelters had been opened to find everyone dead, suffocated in the dark. Minjum Park and his daughter were among them. Memorial stood in the colony center. 8,000 names. Minjum Park's message, the one he sent before dying, was carved at the top of the memorial. Tell Earth this was not an accident. They knew we were here. They killed us anyway. Make them. Stood before the memorial reading the names. Her name was Grace Turner. She was a reporter from Earth who had come to document the rebuilding. She had interviewed survivors from New Haven, soldiers who fought in the war, politicians who made decisions. She was writing a comprehensive history of what happened and why. Excuse me, someone said behind her. She turned, an older Korean woman stood there with tears on her face. Are you press? Yes, ma'am, Grace Turner, Earth Chronicle. If he died here at Minjum Park, his name is on the wall. He was an engineer. He had a daughter. She was 8 years old. The woman's voice broke. I wanted someone to know, to remember them as people, not just names on a wall. She pulled out her recorder. Tell me about them, please. And talked for an hour about Minjun's kindness, about laughter, about the life they had been building on this colony. Grace recorded every word. These stories mattered. The names on the wall had been people with lives and families and dreams. They deserved to be. While Cross visited the liberated slave facilities, the survivors had been returned to their medical care provided, therapy arranged, but wanted to see the empty cells one more time, to remember why Earth's response had been necessary. Emma found him standing in one of the cell blocks. General. Doctor, I heard you publishing your findings. It's complete documentation of every crime we found, every testimony, every piece of evidence. I want it all on record. People say we should let it go, move forward, not dwell on the past. Shook her head firmly. Those people are wrong. If we don't document this, if we don't preserve the evidence, then in a generation someone will claim it wasn't that bad. They'll say we exaggerated. They'll say the war was unjustified. We owe it to the dead to make sure the truth survives. How many did we save? Total count. 216 non-humans freed from facilities. Plus, we prevented attacks on 3 human colonies that would have killed 43,000 more people. And by changing galactic law, we created a framework to prevent future atrocities. Around the empty cells. Was it worth the cost? We lost soldiers too. Good people died taking these facilities. So, we stopped a civilization that treated other sentient beings as disposable. We freed thousands of slaves. We prevented future genocides. Yes, General, I think it was worth it. The rebuilding was different. Their military was gone, disbanded under our supervision. Their aggressive culture was being slowly reformed. Schools taught new curricula. Younger learned about the crimes their leaders committed and why the war happened. It was painful work. Many older resisted, but change was happening. Name stood before a class of students. He was a teacher now, hired to educate the next generation. We study the war, said. We study what our leaders did, the colonies they attacked, the people they murdered, the slaves they held. This is our history. We cannot erase it. We must learn from it. Student raised a hand. Teacher, why did humans spare our world? They could have destroyed us, made us extinct. Why didn't they? Humans fight for justice, not genocide, said. They wanted to stop our aggression, not exterminate our species. That's the difference between them and our old leaders. Our leaders saw their species as resources to exploit. Humans see them as people to protect. That's a lesson we must remember. Well, Price gave his final address to the defense fleet on the day of his retirement. Ships from across human space gathered in Earth orbit. Thousands of officers and crew watched the ceremony. Something important, said. Not just a military capable of defending our people, but a force that protects innocence across the galaxy. We proved that a young species can stand up to established powers. We showed that warnings have meaning. We demonstrated that justice delayed is not justice at all. But most importantly, we proved that strength and mercy can coexist. We defeated them militarily, but we didn't exterminate. Held them accountable, but we didn't commit genocide. We became powerful, but we didn't become monsters. That's the legacy I hope you carry forward. He saluted, stepped down from command. Captain Sophie was promoted to admiral and took his place. The transition was smooth. Earth's defense fleet continued its mission. Sutterhan returned to Earth. She walked through her old neighborhood in San Francisco, visited her favorite restaurants, spent time with her. She had been offered positions in the new government roles in galactic affairs, speaking to her. She declined them all. She had done her part. Time to rest. She kept the recording of her final speech to the Galactic Council. The speech where she warned them, where she told them exactly what would happen if they ignored humanity's words. Sometimes, late at night, she played it back and remembered. Warned you, she had said. We gave you every chance. You chose not to listen. Now witness what you've unleashed. She had listened. Finally, after 48,000 deaths, after a war that reshaped galactic politics, after humanity proved that its warnings carried weight. Haven, the memorial garden closed for the evening. Lights beside the 40,000 names glowed softly in the darkness. In the rebuilt colony, families ate dinner together. Children did homework. Life continued. The memorial remained, a reminder of what happened when warnings were ignored, a promise that humanity would never forget, a declaration that the dead would be honored by protecting the living. Inscription at the base of the memorial wall read simply, they warned us. We didn't listen. Never again. As the galaxy other species read those words, some with understanding, some with fear, all with respect. It had given its last warning to the galaxy. The galaxy had learned what happens when humanity's warnings are ignored. The lesson had been written in fire and blood and justice. It would not be forgotten. Decades that followed, no species attacked human colonies. When disputes arose, they were brought to negotiation first. When threats emerged, they were addressed diplomatically. The war became a case study in every military academy across civilized space, not as a model for how to fight, but as a warning of what happens when diplomacy fails and patience runs out. Humanity had wanted peace, had asked for justice, had given warnings. All of that failed. Humanity had shown the galaxy what it meant to be pushed too far. The galaxy remembered. Earth orbit, the defense fleet maintained its watch, silent, vigilant, ready. Patrol ships that guarded human colonies also watched over vulnerable colonies of other species. Protection offered freely, justice enforced fairly, strength tempered with mercy. It was humanity's new role in the galaxy, not conquerors, not aggressors, but protectors who kept their promises and enforced their warnings. A young species that had taught the old ones a lesson they would never forget. Earth had given its last warning. The galaxy had listened. Peace, hard won and carefully maintained, endured. Vote. The new laws passed with only 3 dissenting votes. Earth had won not just a military victory, but a fundamental change in how the galaxy operated. Violence against civilians would no longer be tolerated. Justice would no longer be delayed by politics and bureaucracy. Priestess approached after the session. You have changed the galaxy, the old said, not through conquest, but through force applied with precision. You have shown that power without mercy is not strength. Your species will be feared now, but also respected. Didn't want to be feared, said. We wanted to be left in peace. Oh, but the galaxy gave you no choice. You warned them. They didn't listen. Now everyone will remember what happens when humanity's warnings are ignored. Turn to face the full council. I have studied humans for decades. I have read their history. I understand what you do not. When humans say they will do something, they mean it. When they issue warnings, those warnings are real. You thought their threat of total war was empty bluster. You were wrong. And now everyone will pay for your mistake. Me, Ambassador Hand, said. His voice was ice. Get me the council and mobilize every ship we have, the one at war. Now they'll get it. They would choose peace, but hope was not strategy. Hope had not saved New Haven, so while he hoped for peace, he prepared for war. Galaxy had been warned. Soon it would learn whether humanity's words carried weight. Whether they needed to be written in fire.